All right, good afternoon, bon après-midi tout le monde. Welcome to the National Managers Community Managers Connect Virtual Talks for September 24th, 2020. Je suis Michael McInnes, gestionnaire régional de la CNG ici en Atlantique. S'il vous plaît, notez que cet événement est enregistré. Please note that our event today will be recorded and a YouTube video link will be made available following the session. We ask that you please click on your screens to mute your microphone and turn off your cameras. S'il vous plaît, cliquez votre écran pour désactiver votre microphone et éteindre votre caméra. Les conversations virtuelles est une des multiples moyens de la CNG pour rejoindre plus de 40 000 gestionnaires et aspirants gestionnaires à travers le pays en couvrant les différents sujets qui vous sont importants. And for today's session, we'll be discussing creating a virtual team oath with our special guests, Susie Roussel, who is the Manager and Principal Advisor and Ombudsman for Mental Health at Public Services and Procurement Canada. And Susie assisted actually in our NMC's own virtual oath this year. And joining Susie today, we have NMC Executive Director Kim Macies, who actually came up with the original concept of a virtual oath. So merci à tous et tous pour nous joindre pour cette importante discussion sur les serments d'équipe virtuelle. Before we start, I just want to note that this is a bilingual session, regardless of the quality of the French so far. Et nous vous invitons à vous sentir libre de poser les questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. I know that we're looking forward to an engaging session, so without further delay, I want to welcome Susie and Kim. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Merci, thanks.
Okay, so, hey Susie,
you can hear us okay? Michael, you just gave me a big promotion without asking for it. Yes, you introduced me as the Ombudsman. I work with the Ombudsman.
Oh, my gosh.
But that's okay.
So sorry.
You know,
so sorry.
My dream.
Yeah, maybe that'll change after today. So I want to start by asking you just a brief question. You're both managers, so you manage people. So can you name one positive work-related impact as a result of the pandemic? Est-ce qu'il y a l'impact positif lié au travail qui s'est produit à la suite de la pandémie?
Well, I guess I can start off, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So the NMC has been working virtually for a really long time. So COVID's given us the opportunity to share best practices and lessons learned with managers across Canada. It's also provided with me personally the opportunity to get to know my team's furry and non-furry children better.
Actually, we got a furry friend on our own, which was a first pet for me. But you know, to answer your question, I think there's many silver lining in all of this that we are able to name, work-wise and personal-wise. For sure, from an ombudsman office perspective, definitely our business model had to change because we were a lot about face-to-face. So like anybody else, we had to flip all of that on the virtual level to be able to continue our connection. And one, I'd like to say amazing thing that happens, parce que comme on dit en français, ça commence à faire des petits, là, ce qu'on a fait au bureau de l'Ombudsman de la santé mentale à travaux publics à la SPAC. We actually developed a Facebook page in the early days of the pandemic, to connect with the people that didn't have access to the VPN and all that. So we were able to reach the folks on other channels, which are a bit more informal for department and so on, which would probably have not happened aussi rapidement et aussi efficacement que si on n'avait pas été en temps de pandémie. So that's definitely something worth mentioning that enabled us to connect to folks faster.
It's a great initiative.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Okay, now to the main topic of today is the virtual team oath. And Kim, this is really our second edition for the NMC's virtual oath. And so I wonder if you could explain to our participants how you come up with the original concept and what objectives you were trying to achieve.
Sure. I'll provide a little bit of background first. So when I started with the NMC about 3 years ago, I had never managed a team virtually. So it was a big question mark for me. And being interviewed by the team, someone actually called me on it. They said, so you've never managed anybody virtually. How are you going to do it? And, you know, I took a second to think about it. And it's the same thing as working not virtually. You start from a place of trust. So if folks were not going to perform or I was losing trust, then you need to have a conversation with them. You need to open that communication. So, you know, I'm always joking that I'm a recovering control freak. So some of my team members may not agree. I'm like, nice. However, you know, it's literally impossible to be a control freak when you have folks working from every corner of the country, because it will overwhelm you. And really, there's not enough energy to be able to worry about everything going on. So that sort of is the link to how I came up with the idea. The NMC team at the time was coming together for our annual face-to-face retreat. And I knew from my bilateral discussions that there were some frustrations within the team about the different way people interacted on team calls, reacted to requests. You know, the bottom line is that we're all different people and the ways we work are different. So I wanted to find an interactive product, a productive way to get the team to be able to voice their opinions, talk about things that are important to them, and together find a way to be more inclusive and respectful. So, il y a toujours eu de nombreuses discussions sur la mobilisation des équipes. Or, en 2001, la CNG a publié la trousse de leadership et d'apprentissage, Tools of Leadership and Engagement, which are available still to this day on the NMC website. L'une des activités qui figure dans le livret s'appelle le charte de l'équipe, Team Charter. So I took a look at the team charter thinking, okay, I think we can massage this proven tool and turn it into an engagement activity and a virtual oath by amending some of the themes. So there's 8 steps that we took to create the oath, and I'll go through them quickly. And I'm also going to ask my very competent tech team to throw up the NMC Virtual Oath if they can. Alors, étape numéro 1. Comme équipe, nous avons déterminé les sujets que nous souhaitons voir inclus dans le serment virtuel. So the first step was, as a team, identifying the themes that were relevant to the NMC. So in our virtual oath, we chose workplace values, where you can see trust, being supportive, respect. Aussi, on a choisi les protocoles. Alors, communiquez, restez en contact, tenez vos calendriers à jour, et participer à l'intégration des nouveaux membres. So then we went on to code of conduct. Be mindful of time zones. I like to call them the time zone tango. Be present, prepared, and on time for meetings. And I know, Susie, you and I talked about this one. This is your favorite one. Have an I'm all in attitude. Communication, quand vous gérez à distance, est tellement important. On sait que 80% est non verbal. Alors, veuillez à bien communiquer vos idées en tant que membre d'une équipe virtuelle. Et une autre chose qui est très importante pour engager et mobiliser les équipes, reconnaissez et soulignez les réussites individuelles et collectives. Ça ne fait pas de différence si il est petit ou grand. So the last one is just to talk about the advantages and the challenges that we're living. So regional diversity, of course, is a benefit, and you know the time zone tango is a challenge. So the great thing about this workshop or this exercise is that you can take different themes that are more relevant to you. So examples like maybe you need service standards, maybe you want to talk about roles and responsibilities, or even team improvement goals. Alors, à la prochaine étape, numéro 2, trouvez le bon facilitateur pour guider votre équipe tout au long de l'exercice. So finding the right facilitator is key. As a manager, you probably do have the skill set to be able to lead this yourself, but a best practice really is to find a neutral individual to do that. And you should always meet with your facilitator prior to the session to discuss expectations and objectives of the oath. Alors, prochainement, étape numéro 3. Pour ce qui est de la logistique, il faut se procurer des tableaux de papier, des marqueurs, autocollants et des papillons adhésifs. Yes, really what I'm talking about is what is required for a face-to-face session with like flip charts, markers, that type of thing. We will be talking a little further in the discussion about digital platforms that you can use now to create this at a distance. OK, étape numéro 4. Au début de la session, tiens une discussion sur les objectifs de l'exercice, les principaux défis auxquels il faudra faire face et la définition de chaque thème. So that introductory discussion to set the tone of the whole exercise is important. So you want to discuss the goals, the key challenges being faced, and the definition of each theme so everyone is on the same page. You want to keep your goals and your challenges discussed handy so participants can refer to them as you go through the exercise. Étape numéro 5. Les participants indiquent sous chaque thème les éléments qui leur sont importants. So at this point of time, this is where participants can provide comments and identify items important to them under each theme. So I'm going to give you a couple of my pet peeves at the time. Keeping your calendar updated and sharing your calendar. When I started with the NMC, that wasn't happening. And when I was trying to book bilateral meetings or team meetings, it was taking double the time. The other, another sort of issue that I'm fond of is salutations at the beginning and the end of each email. So, hi, how are you doing today? Thank you very much. Have a great day. You know, now we're working virtually. So that communication, as it would have been if you were face-to-face, is really important. And, you know, I was talking to my husband who's not in the Canadian government about this. And he's like, well, you know what drives me nuts? People who have incomplete signature blocks. And if you want to call them to follow up on a message, it takes you even longer to do it or you just don't bother. OK, étape numéro 6. Les participants utilisent leur autocollant pour indiquer leurs 3 éléments les plus importants sur chaque thème. So this is the opportunity for participants to take their stickies and identify the top 3 items under each theme. So the interactions and discussions amongst the team during this is really interesting. People are talking to themselves. People are discussing why things are important. It's really an engaging time. Alors, étape numéro 7. Le facilitateur revient sur les principaux défis mentionnés au début. This is when the facilitator loops back to the key challenges discussed at the beginning and asks participants whether they feel they have been met. So this is the time and the place where if you see that something hasn't answered a question or maybe not have, you know, dealt with something sufficiently, this is where that discussion should happen. Enfin, on a créé un document. On doit le faire attrayant visuellement, dans lequel sont numérés les 3 à 5 premiers éléments sous chaque thème. So you've created your virtual oath. You get someone tricky like our NMC communications advisor, Natalie Schofield, to work with the document and make it visually appealing. The last virtual oath we had plasticized and sent out to everyone. The new one was created at the end of February. So with COVID, we haven't done anything with it yet in terms except for sharing it with the team members. But another best practice that we did at the NMC was when someone was coming on board, we would send it to them in advance so they could take a look at it and ahead of time sort of get a sense of what the team's values, the organizational culture is, and sort of what those expectations are. So quickly, those are sort of the 8 steps we took in creating the tool. Alors, Michael, c'est ça.
Okay, merci, Kim. And I must say, I did find it actually really helpful when I was starting as sort of an onboarding to the NMC to have that virtual oath in front of me as a new staff, just to get a sense as to what we kept or what he held as important in terms of how we interacted together. And I participated in the last session to develop our most recent virtual oath. Et pour cette nouvelle version, nous avons adopté une approche différente. Pouvez-vous expliquer, Kim, un peu cela à nos participants?
Oui, Michael. The approach was different because Susie was asked to facilitate it. So maybe we'll throw that one over to Susie and she can explain how it goes.
Oui, oui, absolument. Ben, premièrement, Kim, merci d'avoir pensé à moi. J'ai eu du fun, j'ai toujours du fun avec la Communauté nationale des gestionnaires. Je connais très bien l'organisation depuis longtemps, j'y participe avidement. Et quand tu m'as demandé ça, j'ai dit, oh my gosh, that is such a brilliant exercise that you guys are doing. Parce que je savais que vous étiez des précurseurs dans la gestion. Puis il n'y en a pas beaucoup des équipes comme ça, ce que je sache, moi, anyway, là, au sein du gouvernement. Alors, je trouvais que ça donnait la place à être, si on veut, comme un trailblazer, avoir un virtual. J'ai beaucoup aimé l'expérience. Comment je me suis préparée? Bien, comme que je connaissais l'organisation, je savais qu'il y avait une diversité de gens qui allaient être là, de tous les coins du pays. C'était de m'assurer que les personnes se sentent confortables, se sentent dans un endroit sécuritaire avec les bureaux de l'Ombudsman. Vous savez, quand on dit safe space, pour moi, c'est devenu très important au sein des équipes et dans tout ce que je fais, même aujourd'hui, dans the virtual talk that we're having, the notion of safe space for people to express themselves without fear and without, avec tout the whole, avec tout ce qu'ils sont comme personne. Je m'en vais de l'anglais au français, mais bon, ça fait partie du safe space. Et de créer cet environnement-là où les gens peuvent être eux-mêmes. So, to establish trust by getting to know each other, by letting people getting to know me as a facilitator as well, was like, hey, I'm from New Brunswick, I've been in Ottawa from this region, on a personal level where we allow for those personal connections to be established, to come in a natural way. Of course, I had about 15 minutes to do that, but I think qu'à la fin de la journée, à la fin de l'expérience, j'ai remarqué que vous aviez des liens très tricotés serrés entre vous et vous aviez créé l'espace de pouvoir dire « moi, j'aime ça » ou « j'aime pas ça ». Le « j'aime ça », il est facile. Les choses, the things that we like, we can actually say that very easily. The things that irritate a little bit, ça devient un petit peu difficile parfois à communiquer. Mais vous avez eu une belle session à vraiment défricher, si on veut, qu'est-ce qui est important pour vous, puis comment vous vouliez que ça se passe, les fuseaux horaires. Puis là, je me dis, un outil comme ça maintenant, si on parachute ça dans le COVID, ça ne peut que nous aider tout le monde. C'est un peu comme ça que je me suis préparée pour l'exercice.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Susie. And for that session, we were able to meet face to face and discuss our virtual oath. Let's flip now to later on in 2020, in the current COVID situation with managers leading at a distance. Some managers for the first time. How can a virtual team oath be created in this new context, remotely?
Si tu veux, Kim, je vais juste...
oui, allez-y.
Je pense que c'est un outil qui est presque un backbone, une colonne vertébrale maintenant pour la façon qu'on fonctionne. Parce que quand on accepte d'être gestionnaire, on accepte de prendre soin de nos équipes, on accepte de prendre soin de nos employés. Puis ça a une différente connotation aujourd'hui. C'est plus juste dans le présentiel, c'est dans le virtuel. Puis ça veut dire éventuellement aussi probablement des équipes mélangées des virtuels et du présentiel. So, tout ça mis sur la table, il y a différentes façons de créer. Je pense que Kim a de l'information sur différents outils virtuels qu'on peut utiliser. Mais moi, je suis un avid proponent of the good old phone. You know, when you're a manager and you need to connect with your staff one at a time, get to know them, establish the trust, especially if you have staff to onboard in nowadays, that's not an easy thing. They can feel quite lonely in their new setup office and different realities that they're going through. They can have pets and kids and, folks that are partners that are working as an essential worker. So, les environnements du travail à la maison ont grandement changé, puis c'est une opportunité de mieux se comprendre. Alors, en tant que gestionnaire, mettez la table. Set the table for your team. Bring them to an environment where they actually want to be all in. sais, je vais m'arrêter là, je vais te laisser la parole.
Right. So from more of a logistical point of view, obviously flip charts are not going to work well remotely. There are some really interesting interactive digital platforms that would work well. Slido, Pull Everywhere. You could also make word clouds. Some platform that the school is using, Canada School Public Service, is called WooClap. I invite participants, if they have some platforms that they've used they want to share, please go to the chat function and share them with the participants today. Mais il faut garder à l'esprit qu'il s'agit d'un exercice d'une heure et demie à 2 heures. Alors, vous voulez que l'équipe demeure en forme et engagée. Ainsi, le serment n'a pas besoin d'être terminé en une journée. Vous pourrez faire une session de 30 minutes chaque semaine, traitant d'un thème différent. Peut-être ça va vous prendre 4 à 5 semaines pour le compléter, mais à la fin, vous obtiendrez un document dans lequel votre équipe a investi.
OK. Merci, Kim et Susie, pour ça. Juste une dernière question before we go to our participants. Quels sont les avantages et la valeur d'un serment d'équipe virtuelle? And I realize we've already mentioned a few of these, but I wonder if you could just recap for us what you see as the benefits and the value of a VTO, if I can call it a VTO, ou un SEV en français.
What we need in government is more acronyms. Exactly.
But this one is fun, VTO.
Yes. Did you want to jump in?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
for sure. For me, one of the benefits, I think that any tools that we're trying to develop to create healthy workplaces is a goal. You know, if you're trying to create un esprit d'équipe, un sentiment d'appartenance, tout ce qui fait partie de ce qu'on appelle plus les soft skills, là, je trouve que ça rapproche les équipes. Maintenant, il faut que ça soit fait avec respect, avec confiance. Et je pense que le retour d'un outil comme celui-là au niveau des fonctionnements des équipes, j'en ai vu même à la SPAC, il y en a des équipes qui ont développé ce genre d'outils et on s'y réfère souvent. It's your backbone. You fall back on it. If you send it, you know, the way you communicate virtually, the way you communicate by email or over the phone, it helps you channel the message in a way that you know the other person will understand what you mean because you've discussed it before.
Yeah, very good points. So for me, in creating it and continuing with it, it's the great tool to engage and interact with your team, listen to their concerns, giving them a voice. For the team members, better understanding the needs and preoccupations of their colleagues. You're removing barriers to full participation. And in the end, I think for me, the most important was allowing your team to shape an inclusive workspace reflecting their needs. So it's a lot of buzzwords, but at the same time, I think if they can take ownership in it, it's more apt to work and to take off.
I'll just add to that it's important to keep things simple. You know, I think it's the English expression, the KISS principle, keeping it simple. Je pense que ça, tu fais un long bonhomme de chemin quand tu gardes les choses simples.
Okay.
Very true.
Great tips. Okay, thank you, Kim and Susie, for sharing your insights and tips to help us, help managers and all of us work better in a virtual team. At this time, we'd like to open the floor to participants to ask questions. S'il vous plaît, posez vos questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Please feel free to ask your questions in the official language of your choice. Vous pouvez poser les questions en utilisant la fonction de chat dans MS Teams. Please use the chat function. You should see a little icon, I think, at the top of your screen that you click on to ask questions in the chat. And I'm scrolling down here to see what we have. Okay, well, here's a question. What would you say to team members who are skeptical of such a process? In other words, how do you get buy-in from team members?
Okay, so it is always a challenge. There are folks who just due to their personality types, introverts or extroverts who won't be engaged by this. I think it's important that as a team you set what the goals are for it, and to make sure that if someone's not engaged, their preoccupations are reflected. So it would be in their best interest to contribute and to participate. Susie?
Well, moi, quand que j'ai, when I have someone who is not totally all into, afin de reprendre l'expression que j'adore, je prends le temps de poser la question pourquoi, why, and understand, you know, what's behind it. Maybe it's a misunderstanding of what the exercise is about. Maybe they're not comfortable contributing fully with the team, but on the side. Or there's different ways. Mais je vais toujours être curieuse. I'll be curious all the time and try to find ways with how they want to be brought in, you know, so that they're not on the sideline.
You make a really good point, and through COVID is, you know, people want to be recognized different ways. Not everyone wants to be on camera. It's finding what works for the team, and getting to know your people will allow you to set up that engagement in a way that suits everybody, if possible.
Okay, great, thanks. I'm just trying to go through the chat here. So one question we have in is, can you explain, and I think maybe you've already done this a little bit, Kim, but can you explain the key differences between a team charter and a virtual team oath?
Sure.
And is there such a thing as a virtual team charter?
So Canada School of Public Service has some excellent resources for managing virtually. They have something called a virtual team charter, which is more task and responsibility related. So they have topics in mission and vision, roles and responsibilities, team values, skills and knowledge inventories, operations, conflict resolution mechanisms. For them, it's a roadmap forward for successfully meeting their objectives, where ours is more a team engagement, ensuring inclusivity, civility, and respect in the workplace.
Okay, great. So we had Susie help us with our last one. Est-ce qu'on peut trouver quelqu'un comme Susie afin d'aider à animer la séance nous permettant de rédiger notre propre serment virtuel?
Nous sommes tous besoin d'une Susie. Yes,
oh my gosh, you're too much. Well, you know, is it the NMC that found me or me that found the NMC? I think that's what it was for me. I found the NMC many years ago, you know, when I was having I'll be honest, my workplace was not at the best at the time. It was a very toxic environment. And I started reaching out to different organizations just to keep going and to keep plowing through. And to me, the NMC, I've never let it go since then, because it's almost been like a savior in a lot of ways, because I found peers, I found people that had the same concern as I did, I found people that managers that were engaged, that wanted to do more. They wanted to contribute at the GC level. And it was very inspiring. So, you know, I would dare say to any managers out there who is either having a fun time or a tougher time, to not hesitate in reaching out either through Kim or through the regional folks within the NMC, because the experience has been amazing, and I'm still here today, and I really hope to contribute in the future as well. So to answer short, you find me by finding yourself.
But you're with the Ombudsman, so all departments have, through a new legislation and policy, they all have offices of Ombudsman. So you could look through that. Values and ethics, learning. Your HR learning folks might also be able to hook you up. Yeah, what you said, check out the NMC, but usually there are departmental managers, communities too, so they might as well be able to hook you up. But there's just a few suggestions there.
Okay, Kim, another question. So you created the virtual oath before I came on and joined your team. Y a-t-il des changements évidents dans la dynamique de l'équipe une fois que vous avez rédigé et commencé à utiliser le serment virtuel? Did you notice any changes in the team dynamics once you developed and started using it?
Personnellement, il y avait une réduction du stress parce qu'ils ont commencé à utiliser leur calendrier électronique. Non, mais sans blague, oui, je trouvais que les échanges pendant la réunion étaient plus respectueux. Aussi, je trouvais que il y avait moins de frustration et peut-être vraiment la CNG est une équipe inclusive, mais on a fait une pas à une autre étape d'être plus inclusive et plus respectueux.
I'll just add to that when you're the manager, the instigator of, putting together those wonderful tools, you have to walk the talk as well. You have to use them. You have to make sure that they're visible, qu'ils sont faciles à comprendre, qu'ils sont faciles à utiliser, that they are engaging. When I say walk the talk, c'est dans les petits gestes des fois qu'on trouve la civilité et le respect. Puis pas que ça ne l'était pas des fois auparavant, mais je gère une équipe qui est très extravertie. Ça fait, vous pouvez juste vous imaginer, lorsqu'on a des meetings virtuels, tout le monde veut parler en même temps. Fait que tu arrives à un carrefour de voix où finalement t'entends plus rien. Fait que c'est pas nécessairement productif. Fait j'ai commencé il y a quelques jours maintenant à utiliser la petite main dans Microsoft Teams. So I'm starting to use that hand when I want to talk. So I on purpose, don't talk and wait for my turn. Ben, Colin de bin, it worked this morning. Everybody was like using the hand, becoming more mindful of the behaviors that we were having dans un temps présentiel, que là, dans le virtuel, les voix coupent, ça fonctionne plus. Fait, c'est peut-être pas relié dans le serment virtuel comme tel. Et tu vois, et maintenant, on a Kim qui la main is wonderful. Mais ce sont des petits gestes comme ça que des fois, qui prennent réalité et qui deviennent des nouveaux comportements qui sont inscrits dans la civilité et le respect.
You're right. You're totally right. It becomes ingrained, right? I always said that working at the NMC has made me a nicer person because I'm mindful. Working virtually made me a nicer person because I was mindful that all I have to communicate is the voice, your messages. So it's a good lesson.
Okay, I don't know if I'm a nicer person yet, but
yes, you are, Mike.
Oh, thank you. I was pretty nice to begin with. No, I'm just kidding. So we just updated our virtual oath. I think we're on a schedule to do that probably every year. But on a une question ici. À quelle fréquence devons-nous mettre à jour ou revoir notre serment d'équipe? How often should we be updating or revisiting our virtual oaths?
So for us, it was a couple years. I think if there's a new group of people, if the majority of folks who are paying attention to the virtual oath aren't the ones who created it, well, the time is there to do it. If you're noticing that perhaps your team's taking on a different dynamic and maybe you need to add something, you could probably, it's a live document at one point, right? So you don't have to do the full exercise, but if there's something that you're seeing, you could always add something to it. So I would say if it's the same team, mostly the same team together, 2 years. But if it's a new team, as often as required.
I'll just add quickly, also to be mindful, because we're in a pandemic right now, of those types of extraordinary environment change that happens around us. One thing that we've started to build at the Office of Ombudsman of Mental Health at PSPC is we're socializing what we call the platinum rule. We were socialized, if you like, to the golden rules, and here's I see quickly the difference. la règle d'or, c'est que l'on veut que les autres nous traitent de la façon comme nous, on veut être traités. Alors que if we are looking at what's being said and develop research-wise around the platinum rule, it's treating others how they want to be treated, which is a different thing. So if you're gonna talk about diversity and inclusion and you know, throwing in there the word flexibility, especially in the way we manage now with all the extracurricular not activity but must do that we have to do, picking up kids and going to the hospital or bringing food to somebody we care about and so on and so forth. Ce sont tous des éléments qui n'ont pas rapport avec ma réalité, mais qui ont rapport avec la réalité de l'autre. Et moi, je me rends compte que je parle avec mes mains dans « tu devrais pas faire ça ». Donc, la réalité de l'autre, pour la comprendre, pour l'accepter, il faut en discuter. Puis, il faut un peu changer sa paire de lunettes. We have to change the glasses that we look through, you know, from how I want to be treated, which has nothing with the other one. So, food for thought for when we're developing those types of tools and, you know, discussion or quand on parle de productivité ou quand on parle de livrables et ces choses-là, d'avoir cette notion que l'autre, c'est pas nous, puis d'être flexible et d'accepter ça.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Susie. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. 4 questions. Maintenant, j'aimerais céder la parole à Kim pour quelques mots de la fin.
Thanks, Mike. Merci beaucoup. I want to thank all participants for joining us today as we all try to navigate this new reality we're living in and working in. Merci beaucoup, Susie, d'avoir pris le temps d'engager avec moi aujourd'hui et répondre à nos questions et pour partager vos connaissances et vos conseils avec nous. C'est toujours un plaisir de collaborer avec vous. The information and tools we shared today will definitely be helpful to managers and public servants alike as we try to lead and keep our teams engaged through these challenging times. The team will be sending out an email following this session with the resources that we discussed today. You can also try and download the virtual team oath via the chat section. Thanks, Mike, for being moderator host today. You are nice. Natalie, Elizabeth, all my teammates here at the NMC, thank you for coordinating this event. Je souhaite remercier tout particulièrement Jonathan Lebel, notre gestionnaire régional pour la RCN, qui quittera la communauté la semaine prochaine. Merci d'avoir joué le rôle de gourou de la technique dès le début de nos conversations virtuelles. Et merci pour tout ce que vous avez accompli au cours de la dernière année et demie afin de soutenir la CNG et les gestionnaires de la RCN. On vous souhaite bonne chance dans tous tes nouveaux projets de l'avenir. C'est tout pour moi, Mike. Over to you to close us off.
Okay, yes, Joe's going to be greatly missed. Hopefully we can pull these off without him. Thank you. Merci tout le monde pour votre participation. Merci également à Kim for guiding us, for providing us these insights on virtual oaths, and for Susie as well for being with us today and sharing your insights. We hope that everyone will join us for our next Managers Connect virtual talk taking place in about 2 weeks. The theme of which has yet to be announced, but you can follow our Twitter handle at NMC_CNG. So NMC_CNG for all our updates and registration details. Until then, best wishes, bon fin de la journée et à la prochaine. Merci.
Merci. Bonne journée.